Order, please. May we have the roll call?
Budget Member Savick. Here. Commissioner Sparacino.
Here.
Commissioner Dyer.
Here.
Budget Member Barton.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Chair Morris.
Here. Thank you. We are going to continue with public hearings this morning, and we're going to start with roads and parks. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, Budget Committee members.
I believe, Steve, that we have 30 minutes for you today.
You do, and Joel just told me to keep it at a tight 5, but it's going to be at about 24 minutes.
You didn't listen to him, did you?
No. I want a 5-minute presentation? Give me 10 minutes on the schedule. So I appreciate being here every year, commissioners, Budget Committee members. Gives me a chance to talk about the good things that our team is doing over the last 12 months, the stuff that we have planned for the next 12 months, and the challenges ahead, which, as you'll see, we have plenty of challenges ahead. As you know, new committee member might not be aware, the Roads and Parks Department is comprised of 5 programs with distinct difference in services that we deliver. That said, they do work together very closely as one team to help support each other. We truly are one department. We're the Roads and Parks Department, not 2 separate ones, although sometimes in the past it's felt that way. Quick fact on roads, with over 900 miles of county roads containing over 17,000 individual traffic signs and a few hundred bridges, our road system is a large and important part of the regional transportation network. Our parks team manages and maintains 23 developed parks, over 900 campsites, and 14 boat ramps on Jackson County's lakes and rivers. And the parks and the opportunities that they provide are an integral part of the Southern Oregon outdoor recreation economy. The work we complete, whether on roads or in parks, couldn't be accomplished without our hard-working team, as we all know. This is a good part of our team at an employee event that we had last fall. This year's proposed budget reduces our staffing levels a half FTE from 102.5 down to 102, as we've frankly struggled over the last several years hiring a part-time surveyor, and we're going to be contracting those services out moving forward. The total parks budget is approximately $6.2 million, and this is a decrease from the current year's budget, largely due to a reduction in our capital program. As many parks were constructed decades ago, we do continue to focus on maintaining our old infrastructure. Many of our parks were built in the 1950s and 60s, and it takes a lot of maintenance to keep that stuff running. Wildfires and the revenue impacts associated with those wildfires, mainly due from smoke, continue to be a concern for us, and the short and largely non-existent winter that we all just experienced, although it seems like it's coming back this week, will present some challenges for us as we head into the summer. Taking a look at where our revenues come from, the state revenue sharing, which largely includes RV registration fees, comprises about 16% of our parks revenues. As you can see, I always like to point out to the Budget Committee that user fees do continue to make up a large majority of our revenue, with each dollar of those user fees going right back into operating, maintaining, and hopefully improving our parks. The fund balance remains quite strong, allowing us to be nimble when winters don't quite go our way, like we just had. And lastly, you'll notice that grant funds are reduced this year, and they're pretty limited, largely proportional to the capital reduction in the capital program. When looking where the money goes, the vast majority is dedicated to operations of our parks and the facilities within them. I will note inflation continues to be a concern. We're experiencing increases in costs from everything from utilities to insurance and everything in between. With Immigrant Lake expected to be at lower levels this year as compared to last year, we are managing labor pretty closely, and we actually have a vacant full-time park ranger position right now that we're going to hold open for a little bit until we see what next winter brings. And as part of our revenue sharing agreement with the Expo for the Southern Oregon RV Park, we do continue to transfer 12% of the net revenues from the Southern Oregon RV Park to the Expo. This year, frankly, was a pretty good one for our parks programs, as we were able to tackle quite a bit of deferred maintenance in our park facilities. Last fall, over the winter, and we're just finishing it up right now, you see some pictures in front of you of the large paving overlay project at the Howard Prairie Resort. We replaced all the pavement, or overlaid all the pavement on all the park interior roads and parking areas. This park in particular has seen over $10 million of improvements, and over the last decade we've put a lot of emphasis onto this facility. It's looking really good right now, and campers are returning to see the improvements. This particular project was largely funded with grants. We also replaced one of the 2 boat ramp boarding floats at Immigrant Lake Park with the assistance of the Oregon State Marine Board and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife grants. The docks are made of all aluminum and a little bit of fiberglass decking and should be reduced operational and maintenance costs from the old pressure-treated wood docks. This particular picture you'll see was right after installation. I think it was last September, so the lake was really low. I was trying to get a new picture of the docks floating. The water has come up. Our crews should be getting those things in the water at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, just in time for the spring boating season. One of our goals is to be more resilient to wildfire impacts in our parks, and as such, over the last several months, we've installed 3 large propane automatic generators at Howard Prairie Resort and at Joseph Stewart Park. These generators will power our sewer lift stations in the campgrounds so that we can continue to keep our restrooms in the campgrounds functional during power curtailment events during fire season, which, as you know, also coincides with the busiest time in our park. The project reduces operational costs for us as we don't have to rent portable toilets, etc., and it also increases service levels to our guests. Wildfires aren't the only environmental concern that's causing issues in our parks. Drought over the last several years has caused its concern as well. We spent tens of thousands of dollars in recent years addressing a large amount of tree mortality at all of our parks as a result of recent droughts, as you can see in the photos here. Affecting nearly every park, we continue to see hundreds of trees dying annually, and the mitigation costs to go along with this is increasing, and we'd only expect it to continue to increase into the future years. Whether wildfires, drought, or extreme heat, the success of our parks program is largely restricted by the events of a short summer season. The program is largely limited to a few months between May and September, where we can make enough revenue to operate our parks, pay our folks to do the work that they do in our parks, and hopefully make a buck or two that we can reinvest back into our parks in capital improvement projects. It does seem in recent years that this season between May and September is really getting shorter and shorter. Whether it's the impacts of high heat events, whether it's the impacts of wildfire and associated smoke, or now most recently we're starting to see impacts of harmful algae bloom, it is affecting our ability to generate revenue in that small season. And if that trend continues, it will be of concern for the sustainability of the parks program. However, in the meantime, we continue to focus on the things that we can control, and one of those is the visitor experience. And we do this in hopes that if we provide a good experience, that'll drive increased revenue and via increased occupancy in our park facilities moving forward. Our motto in parks is we make memories. We say that a lot out in parks, and we want to make good memories for our guests. To gauge our effectiveness and how we're doing on this, in 2025, we launched a continual customer satisfaction survey to ask our guests a handful of very simple questions to let them tell us how we're doing. To date, we've received roughly 1,400, probably a little bit more than that since I put this presentation together, with nearly 3/4 of our park guests rating the appearance of our park facilities at above average. Most of our guests rate the interaction with our staff above average, and over half of them say that it was an excellent experience interacting with our staff. Over 96% of our guests would recommend this park, the park that they were at, to their friends, which is really impressive to me because word of mouth is one of the most effective means of marketing, and it's free. Along the Bear Creek Greenway, pavement maintenance continues to be a theme. This year we crack sealed and will soon slurry seal the trail from Phoenix to Talent, and in the proposed budget we have the same treatment, crack seal and slurry seal, from Talent to Ashland. Work will continue on management of invasive species and a limited amount of restoration work, replanting some of the areas where we take berries and whatnot out with a little more fire-resistant native vegetation. I will point out just some data that we have. When talking to folks about the Greenway, they are frequently surprised to see how much the Greenway is used. We have trail counters at 5 locations along the trail, and we count on average about 1,000 users a day, just shy of 1,000 users a day on the Greenway, and about 330,000 annually. The Greenway is used quite a bit, and it really is a gem in our community. Moving on to the road side of the house, the proposed budget totals nearly $50 million. In developing our budget, You've heard me say in recent years, our goal is to be nimble. We use that word in our department a lot, nimble and flexible. And we do that this year while we wait for the legislature to continue to hopefully address the transportation funding challenges ahead moving forward. This flexibility allows us to be able to respond to unexpected events such as the one you see here, the construction of a new bridge on Fredenberg Road, new Fredenberg Bridge that burned down in an arson event a little over a year ago, and our crews were able to quickly rebuild that within a year. Frankly, a lot of counties are not in that position that they can do that just because they don't have enough cash in the bank to be able to do that on their own. Road fund revenues do come from a variety of sources, but I do point this out every year. One stands out far more than others. As I've shared in the past, our portion of the state highway fund is essential to our road fund, and it provides about 81% of our annual revenues to the road fund. Maintaining this allocation in upcoming legislative sessions is paramount for us and frankly for the other 35 counties as well. As you've heard before, and we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, ODOT continues to predict a decline in the state highway fund due to the adoption of more fuel-efficient vehicles in the future, which leads us to continue a cautious budgeting approach this year as we've done in the past few years. I will point out in 2025, Congress temporarily reauthorized the Secure Rural Schools program for a 3-year period, which will provide a temporary increase of about $700,000 a year in that 3-year period to the road fund. Overall, I think it's pretty safe to say that road fund revenues remain fairly flat. Our forecast of $20 million of the state highway fund, which is based off of ODOT projections, is consistent with what we budgeted this year and what we budgeted last year. Actual allocations might come in slightly higher as they have in the past couple of years, but given the fact that this revenue source is 81% of our revenues, we're being, and frankly, the validity of the ODOT projections, we're a little bit, maybe not 100% firm on. We're opting to budget this revenue source conservatively. I will point out we're beginning to use fund balance to fund much needed capital improvements, and according to our cash flow projections in the upcoming years, our operational revenues are expected to exceed our operational expenses are expected to exceed our operational revenues. At that point, unless the transportation package passes in 2027, we will be forced to look at service level reductions or alternative funding sources in our desire to have adequate fund balance to remain nimble and flexible. This graph of ODOT's projections for future fuel sales shouldn't be much of a surprise. I share it with you annually. This graph, though, was updated in October 25. That was the most recent one that we had access to. And you will see it paints a little bit slightly bleaker picture than the April 25 outlook. Due to the unstable forecast ahead, as I mentioned, we do continue to budget conservatively. Labor remains largely consistent with past levels, while we continue to seek efficiencies instead of increasing staff. As you see, we've actually reduced staff in our department over the past few years. Costs continue to increase for large expenses such as diesel, gasoline, oil, paint, aggregate, not to mention capital construction and capital equipment. With a previously shared emphasis on maintaining what we have a significant amount of our expenses this year are allocated towards road maintenance. We're budgeting 37% of our expenses as contingency or reserves to allow us to have enough ending fund balance to meet those future cash flow and emergency needs. A small amount is allocated to our engineering division to match state and federal grants to leverage these funds towards local dollars. Got a few graphs here for you as examples. As I mentioned, our operational costs do continue to rise. These graphs show costs for a few items which constitute a large portion of our road maintenance expenses. You will notice that our hot mix asphalt costs have increased significantly year over year over the past 5 years, but they are one of the few things that actually decreased, much to our surprise, this year when we opened bids. I will also note that we opened bids just prior to the current kind of global energy crisis, so I'm not so sure that we would have got the same result if we opened them now, but we'll take what we got at the time. Driving surface aggregate, which is the rock we place on gravel roads, as well as chip seal rock and cinders, which as we know are important for winter traction, are all trending higher. Liquid asphalt, or the emulsion we use for chip sealing our roads, is not spared from inflation and is seeing about a 4% increase year over year. So all of those costs, which we spend a lot of money on, continue to climb. As I shared last year, until sustainable funding is secured, we're focusing on the basics, or our essential services, which, as you know, winter maintenance is one of these basic services. Maintaining our pavement, as we share annually, is arguably the most important service that we provide, and we're pretty good at it. From blade patches needed to level roads, to crack sealing those roads to keep water out of the base, to grind and inlay like you see on the bottom right-hand corner, small degraded sections of pavement, all of that prep work pays dividends when we chip seal over the top of it, and it's a really efficient way of maintaining our paved surfaces. With over 300 bridges in our inventory, bridge maintenance and preservation is just as important, in my opinion. We all know what happens when bridges fail, travel is disrupted, service is halted, and people potentially injured, and for these reasons, we consider this an essential service. Can you imagine a road without signs? It would be a mess. We depend on signs while we're driving more than we actually know. We just kind of get tuned into it. Our sign crew replaces every sign on our road system on a 10-year basis to ensure that they are visible in all driving conditions. Just as important as signs are striping and symbols. With over 700 miles of paved surfaces in our system, our crews paint over 2,000 miles of lines a year when you factor in the white lines versus the yellow lines, fog line, center line, and all that fun stuff. Our vegetation crews keep trees, shrubs, and grasses from hanging over the roadways to ensure drivers have adequate visibility for safe travels. They also complete annual hazard tree assessments and remove many of those trees before they become a potential hazard to the traveling public. It can be argued that drainage maintenance is the most important task we do. Saturated bases create failing roads. For this reason, it's essential for us to keep water moving alongside our roads and under our roads. And to that point, our crews cleared over 3,000 culverts just in the last 12 months. Lastly, more and more, as I shared last year, in recent years, our team is being requested to assist in emergency response. We have a 24-hour emergency response program, and we respond to incidents at all hours of the day. And frankly, first responders depend on us to help keep them safe so that they can do the important work that they do. While our crews are performing these important services, our roads are busier than ever before. This doesn't just make work more challenging, it increases the wear and tear on the pavement. You can see here that in the last 10 years, Table Rock Road, just south of Biddle Road, so think the Costco area, sees nearly 870,000 more vehicle trips than it did 10 years ago. East Pine Street, near the Expo or the Pilot Station, is experiencing 657,000 roughly additional trips per year. This increased traffic makes work more dangerous for our crews, more costly, and increases the frequency of maintenance tasks. Speaking of busy roads, our portion of Crater Lake Highway and Antelope Road were both recently overlaid in this current fiscal year at a price of nearly $2.6 million. We did opt to have this work done at night to minimize traffic impacts, but that does come with an additional premium cost. Our crews will complete nearly 55 miles of chip seal in the next month or so, and we have contracted with a company to do some limited amount of crack sealing in White City urban roads, as well as some of those really busy roads like East Pine Street, where it just takes a kind of a whole nother skill set than what our crews have. Next year, we propose to complete an overlay on Avenue G in White City. This road is heavily used in the industrial portion of White City. It is between Highway 140 and Highway 62, and frankly, it's in really poor condition and needs some work done on it this year. We'll continue our highly efficient chip seal program in-house, treating about 54 miles a year, 54 miles next year, very close to what we did this year. And as for White City, we'll continue contracting for a limited amount of crack sealing on those urban roads to extend the life of the pavement. We continue to contract with a third party to rate our pavement condition based on a uniform, widely accepted scoring system. And as of this month, the comprehensive pavement condition score of our entire 700 plus miles of paved surfaces remains at 78, which is consistent with the score that I shared last year. So we're holding our own with the work that we're doing. This score means that our roads are collectively in good condition, which is the highest category in that system. I will just note the efforts of all the work that I mentioned before that our team has accomplished is paying off. The Board of Commissioners did set a level of service goal for us to maintain our arterials, or our more heavily traveled roads, at a condition of 80. As of 2026, we're close to meeting that target at 77. but I will note that in my opinion, it's going to take additional funding vis-a-vis a transportation package where we can really invest more on overlays on those heavily traveled roads, because chip seals just aren't the right treatment for those. Adequately funding the maintenance of our paved surface is extremely important. As you can see on the bottom graph, the orange line shows that continuing to invest in the same amount as we currently do on pavement maintenance, plus an annual increase of approximately 3% to account for some, but maybe not all of the inflationary impacts, will result in a mild decline of our pavement condition. To the contrary, the green line shows that if we placed our funding priorities elsewhere, say on shiny new projects, instead of maintaining what we have, our pavement will decline pretty rapidly. That data, I will note, comes straight out of our pavement maintenance database. We don't fool with it, it just comes right out of our database. Even funding at the current investment with a mild 3% increase will result in deferred maintenance growth of upwards of $16 million in 2031, mainly pavement overlays on some of these busy roads that they're due. This further underscores, in my opinion, the need for a legislative fix for transportation funding so we can continue to invest in our paved surfaces. I promised last year that I would continue showing this graph for as long as I'm here at the county, so I had to live up to that this year. Why do I preach pavement maintenance? Because it's a responsible thing to do as stewards of our roads. As I've shared in the past, the more you invest in preventative maintenance on paved roads, the longer you extend the life of the road itself. As the graph shows, it's always cheaper to keep roads in good condition than to pay extra to bring them up to good condition after we've let them reach a certain point in their life. Pavement has a life. You can't pave a road and just walk away. If you do, you will be paying for it in the long run. And kicking the can down the road just puts a larger burden on future generations. Equally as important as pavement maintenance is bridge maintenance. We have many bridges across the county with concrete deck surfaces, and while concrete is strong, just like pavement, it too requires maintenance. The proposed budget does include a slight increase in our bridge maintenance funding, which will allow for a focused effort on sealing these concrete deck surfaces to prevent water intrusion. These treatments will help extend the life of these important structures. In past presentations, I've shared that we've received federal funding to replace 2 bridges, one on Lampman Road and the other on Swingle Road. Design is progressing on both of these structures nicely. We anticipate that to be completed this year, and hopefully towards the end of this calendar year, both of those bridges will go out for construction bidding, and we anticipate construction to begin in 2027. All in all, the more than 300 bridges that we have in our county road system are in great shape, with 96% meeting federal standards and the other 4% still safe to drive on. Once Swingle and Lampman Road bridges are replaced, we expect to have nearly 98% of our bridges then meeting federal standards. As you can imagine, the work to maintain our roads and bridges takes expensive equipment that gets used a lot. This year, we're planning on replacing 1 dump truck, a broom, and several implements needed for road maintenance purposes. We are still battling really long wait times on some of this equipment, so you will notice that this year's budget is a little bit slightly inflated as compared to last year, because we're moving some budgeted funds forward as we anticipate that the equipment that we've ordered from previous budgets won't arrive until after July 1st. Our capital program is very limited as compared to previous years as we focus on funding maintenance. In addition to our match for the bridge replacement projects that I mentioned earlier, we're focused on repairing damage from a storm event in March of 2025. There's some pictures of that damage here. We're in a position that I think, frankly, many other counties are not in, as we can provide 10% match to Federal Highways Administration emergency funds to perform permanent repairs totaling nearly about $15 million on Tiller Trail Highway, which has 3 active slides, as you see in the pictures on top and the one to the right, that continue to move. So we're in the process of working through the agreements with ODOT to get that project funded and get that work beginning. Damage on West Evans Creek Road, the bottom left-hand picture, which was due to high water in that same event in March, was not eligible for federal highways funding, so all the repairs needed for that project will come directly out of the road fund, which, again, I can't stress enough the importance of maintaining adequate fund balance to remain nimble when these types of events do occur, so we don't have to rely on others. So a couple more slides left. The graph here shows the estimated ending fund balance for the road fund over the next 5 years. It's based on several assumptions listed here on the slide, and it will change if those factors change. If revenues remain the same or even decline in coming years, while expenses continue to climb at anticipated rates, you can expect the ending fund balance in the road fund to decrease. Simple math dictates that outcome. Right now, I'm comfortable to see what happens in 2027, acknowledging that even if a transportation package does pass, it might take a year or two before we see the impacts of those new revenue sources. However, if not passed in 2027, the decline in the road fund is, as shown here, just simply is not acceptable, and we're going to have to start looking at some measures that we can take in-house to change the trajectory of that line to make sure that we remain nimble with enough fund balance, like I've mentioned in previous slides. My goal is simple. It's to provide stability to the community, stability to our leaders, and stability to our team. And what happens in Salem in the next 12 months is going to dictate what steps we're going to have to take to meet that goal. So, in summary, our values have not changed since last year due to an uncertain future ahead in transportation funding. We remain conservative in our efforts to remain nimble. And these values allow our team to be flexible and respond to emergencies as they arrive without depending on others. They also encourage us as leaders to focus on efficiency, efficacy, and prioritizing the services that we deliver to the public. So the last slide here is a picture I took earlier this year of our fleet shop in White City. I took it as, I didn't know at the time why I took it, but in looking at it, it's a good reflection of where we sit today. We're in pretty stormy times when it comes to transportation funding as we wait for those in Salem to step up and help address some of our issues. With that said, there's always a rainbow in a storm, and for us, our rainbow is our team. They inspire me daily by pushing us to be better on all fronts, and they're quite frankly the best people that I can pick to be the managers of the public right away. We owe our success to them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. As always, you give a good presentation, and you did a really good job today of laying out the future potential challenges, financial challenges that face your department. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Questions, comments from other members? Yes, Lynn, go ahead.
This is just a small amount of money relatively, but I was wondering what secure rural schools has to do with roads.
A portion of that funding goes to roads. I'm not an expert on how that funding is delivered within the county. Shannon could probably answer that question better than me, but a portion of that funding does go to the roads, the road fund.
So my question was, I made an assumption earlier with the price of gas that we'd have more money, but it's by the gallon, huh?
Yeah, which might actually hurt us as people drive less.
Yes.
Because of gas prices, and that little bit of tax that we get per gallon might
Oh,
decrease.
I was thinking we'd have lots more.
Somebody's getting a lot more, just not us.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I can add just a little
Yeah,
bit
go ahead, Danny.
to the question. First of all, I just want to, mostly for Lynn's knowledge, and I've talked about this before, but roads and parks, while our one department, they're two separate funds, and the parks fund is an enterprise fund, so they're allowed to make money, not like the roads fund. So when we set prices, obviously we want to be competitive and invite people into our community, but when Steve talks about the revenue generation, it's not unlike we talked about the Expo as well as the airport. So when you look at fees and revenue there, that's a really important part. They are self-sustaining, so we 20 years ago provided over $2 million in general fund support to them, and when we had to make cuts to our budget, we stopped providing that and said they had to stand on their own or they would have possibly went away. So they've done a good job over all these years doing that with some general fund support for specific projects, but not for operations. And then with regard to roads, you know, when the county received timber funds, we weren't limited on whether we could use them for roads or general fund services or whatever, but to access, obviously, timber harvest, you have to use county roads. That equipment puts damage on county roads. So there's a philosophy with Public Law 106-393, which was the first reauthorization to supplement the loss of timber money, that there would be a need for all of the general fund services, but there's also impacts to our county infrastructure, and roads as being one of those.
Anything else? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Steve.
Yep.
Next up, we have Finance Department. Morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Michelle, I think we have you down for 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What's that? Does anybody not have? Just for Carmen. Oh, gotcha, okay. All right, so we'll get going. So, hello, my name is Michelle Wickham, and I am the Deputy Finance Director. I work directly under Senior Deputy County Administrator and Finance Director Shannon Bell, and I will be presenting to you the Finance Department's 26-27 requested budget. The Finance Department has 3 programs. It's made up of the Taxation Office, Accounting, and Treasury. The Taxation Office is mainly responsible for the collection and the distribution of property taxes. The Accounting Program provides financial reporting, general ledger, accounts payable, and payroll services to county departments. And the Treasury Program manages the cash and investments of the county, as well as distributing the revenues for taxes to the taxing districts and ensuring on-time payment of our debt service payments. The Taxation Office, which is in the general fund, has a requested budget of $1.1 million. The largest funding source of this program is the general fund support with over 50%. The program does receive revenue from fees, land contract, and foreclosure sales. We do receive a small amount of $500,000, and we provide tax collection services for Douglas and Curry County. The accounting and the treasury programs are central service funds with a requested budget of $1.5 million. Their largest and main rate source of revenue would be the chargebacks to other departments, though the accounting program does receive a rebate from Bank of America, as well as general fund support, fees from records requests, and a smaller portion of the CAFA grant. Combined, the requested budget is $2.7 million. This is a 6% increase from the prior year. The largest increase is related to chargebacks, which correlates to increases in expenses in our internal service programs. As I mentioned, we do receive a rebate from Bank of America. This is for our purchasing card program and our vendor invoice payment programs called ePayables and PayMode. The rebate that the program receives is then given back to the departments based on a percentage of their overall spend. It's given as a reduction to their accounting chargeback. We continue to emphasize the growth and the continued use of our purchasing card program, not only for the rebate that we receive, but also because it's an industry best practice to use purchasing cards as a way to reduce the low dollar, high volume payments that would typically be issued by a check, with checks being the most time consuming and the most expensive form of payment that we issue. Total annually, our card holders spend about $7.7 million on their purchasing cards. This accounts for only 5% of the total spend that the county makes in a year, but it also accounts for 56% of the overall transactions that we process through our financial system, so it alleviates a lot of checks. Since the program began in 2007, we've received $1.6 million in rebate revenue from Bank of America. We haven't received our payment for fiscal year 25-26 yet, but given the volume of spend that we have on our program, we anticipate it to meet the $175,000 that we had budgeted for it. So it's a very successful program. Our department is requesting a expenditure budget of $2.7 million. This is an increase of about $150,000 from the prior year. Again, 6%. It's mainly from just increases in salaries and benefits to our employees. As you can see, personnel costs are 80% of our budget. So this year, like in 26-27, we do see several operational challenges that are intended to increase our workload and the complexity of the work that we perform. House Bill 2089 has introduced new requirements for our taxation program when managing tax foreclosure properties. It's requiring additional notifications, more research, and more time-consuming and processes in order to sell foreclosed properties. As we continue to implement the paid family medical leave and do federal wage reporting requirements, our payroll department has seen an increase in its administrative demands for compliance and payroll processing. While we anticipate this increase in workload, we don't anticipate it requiring additional staffing. It'll just require additional time, oversight, and highlights our need to improve efforts on our efficiency so that we can maintain our current service levels. One of our activity indicators is looking at the number of payments that we process electronically through our tax payment program. They continue to see a high volume of activity. What we see here is what we process through our software called Remit. It's a program that allows us to process check payments in-house rather than outsourcing that service to a bank provider. However, like this measured is variable based on payment behaviors and timing. So for example, you see a higher payment volume in 2020 as people had limited opportunities to pay in person. So we saw a higher check payment in that year. And it does just show a continual demand on our services. Hold on a second. Our accounts payable staff are seeing a slight growth in the number of invoices that they process each year. In fiscal year 25-26, they processed over 16,000 invoices with a total of $120 million. So there's a lot of volume that goes through our accounts payable program. It's very important to have efficient processes in this area, as paying vendors on time and accurately is really important, as well as maintaining our internal controls and making sure that they're in compliance with our financial policies. But even with, our increase in our workload, the finance department continues to have strong performance indicators. Our payroll has a very high accuracy rate. We continue to receive clean and unmodified opinions on our audits. And we are increasing our electronic tax payments and our availability of online statements, which will improve more of our efficiency and reduce our costs. We are once again the GFOA Triple Crown Award winner. This is a recognition by the Government Finance Officers Association for organizations who have received the top 3 reporting awards that they provide for. We get it for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, the Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting, and the Popular Annual Financial Reporting Award. We receive all 3 of those awards. It's something that very few organizations within the United States and Canada can say that they've achieved. We are 1 in 9 in Oregon. We're only 1 of 2 counties, with the other one being Deschutes. So it's a pretty kind of prestigious award that we receive. I did give everyone copies of our Popular Annual Financial Report. We call it the PAFR. It is intended to be used for our citizens to inform themselves of the financial activity of the county, that they don't have to read our 200-page comprehensive annual financial report. It's supposed to be easy to read and actually interesting. So it's available online and throughout the county building in the public areas. And with 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'm so sorry, Shannon, I will give you to talk about the investment portfolio.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I'm Shannon Bell. I am the county treasurer, one of my many roles in the county. I'll talk really quickly about the county portfolio. As you know, our first priority of investments at the county is safety. Last thing I want to do is be on the front page of the paper for losing any investments that I might have chosen for the county. So you can see that our portfolio is well diversified, with the majority of it being in agency paper of the United States. Our total portfolio is just over $400 400 million right now. And I like how you have that to the penny, Michelle. Great. And then we also carry a high quality credit. Most of our paper is AAA or AA plus. The no rating paper is the LGIP. They aren't a rated agency. It's the local government investment pool that's managed by the state of Oregon. Our second priority is liquidity. Always want to make sure I can pay those bills. So this is a liquidity schedule for the 5 years. The huge dip in 6 months, if you count on your fingers, in 6 months we have tax collection. So I usually don't time my investments to mature when I'm also bringing in the majority of the county's revenue. We have an average just about 12 days between maturities. We're slightly below the LGIP. I'll talk really fast. The LGIP is sitting at 4%. We're slightly below. A lot of that is just to maintain our liquidity balance as we're building big projects and doing other things in the county, but we're still competitive. There. Questions for either of us? Yes.
Yes, so I know that, as you've indicated, your investments are all pretty safe.
Yes.
But the market has been misbehaving the last few weeks or couple of months. How is that impacting our portfolio, and is it having any kind of material impact on what we're budgeting for interest income in this upcoming budget?
Yeah, so there are some impacts. We're going to see some unrecognized capital losses this year, potentially impacting our total interest income. Luckily, that's kind of an accounting exercise, so it'll just be on our consolidated financial statements, not on the actual financials of the departments. But as far as safety and liquidity, we don't have any issues.
Okay. Questions?
Can I just add one thing? This is mostly for the public. Maybe you all already know this, but it kind of got glossed over real quickly that we're a Triple Crown winner. And I don't know, probably the public doesn't appreciate as much what that means, but there are literally only 2.5% of all local governments in the entire United States
And
that
Canada.
win that award. I'm sorry.
And Canada.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, and Canada too. I mean, you know, Canada's doing their own thing right now. But
But we're
anyway,
counted with them.
2.5%. And the last that they published in 23, there were only 11 local governments in the state of Oregon and only 2 counties, and none that have won it consecutively as often as our county. So I just want you all to know, and Shannon and her staff deserve the praise for that. And that's given probably a little extra oomph with the new budget brief that we're providing. That's meant to, Shannon likes to be at the top of the bell curve on everything that we do. So we're probably going to stand out a little bit more now. Thank you.
Excuse me, I know I talk about this a little bit, and it's not a huge amount, but I think the P-card rebate is pretty unique and interesting, the fact that it's a new revenue stream that came basically out of nowhere 20 years ago.
18 years ago when I started, but you know, hey.
All right, who's counting? And, you know, it's kind of leveled off, and it was mentioned that it represents about 5% of total payments. So I'm just wondering, is there additional opportunities there? I mean, do we have a way to even increase that number? And 11% of the central services budget is fairly significant, so any more would be obviously welcome.
Right, yeah, there are some barriers to it. There's some companies that don't like to take a credit card for payment because there are additional, they have the merchant fees on their side. We're always reaching out to new vendors or existing vendors and getting them switched. You get your money faster, it's safer, it's, you know, all these things, but, you know, we're kind of at the mercy of the person taking the payment.
But definitely still exploring.
Oh yeah, we're always
options.
doing new
Great.
campaigns and trying to get people to on board.
Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay,
I
Danny?
was just going to say one thing Shannon didn't mention. We could probably go on forever, but we do also bid out like our overnight deposits, who we use, our bank, which bank we use, when people make placements or apply for placements with us with investments. We always try to negotiate, you know, obviously the best position we can on those things. And I don't know if we're ready to go back out for bid on, not yet, but, but we do periodically also do that to update what opportunities we have to earn off of the money we have.
Yeah, and I will say that the current bank that we work with, they do pay 25 basis points under the LGIP for whatever we have sitting in the bank for liquidity. So, you know, we're able to maintain liquidity while gaining some yield, and not every bank will do that.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Shannon.
Thank
and
you.
Michelle. All right, let's see, who do we have next here? County Clerk. Morning, Chris.
Good morning. So as always, I am just reading from my little notes here. Very small staff, so I don't have a lot of time to put together a big PowerPoint presentation, but I do appreciate the ones that do. So thanks for having me. Honorable members of the Budget Committee, County Commissioners, County Administrator, and County Council, and of course the public we proudly serve. The County Clerk's Office is anticipating revenue in the amount of $1,868,920 and expending $1,918,044 to meet our budget target. During the 2026-27 budget year, on behalf of the Clerk's Administrative Elections, Recording, and Property Values Appeals Board program. The majority of Clerk's Office revenues are obtained through recording fees, marriage licensing fees, document sales, and special election reimbursements. We do not get reimbursed for primary and general elections. 2025-26, we successfully conducted a special election. It was less than countywide in November of 2025. Again, special election, so we did get full reimbursement from those jurisdictions that participated in that 2025 November election. And right now we are currently preparing for the May 2026 midterm primary, if you weren't aware, but I know you all were. The Property Values Appeals Board held hearings or process stipulations for 58 petitions during the 2025-26 session. Our Property Recording Alert Service Program, affectionately known as PRAS, and as you could hear with Shannon's presentation, we have lots of acronyms that are used in government industries. So, but this program provides free of charge to our property owners notifications based on their monitored names when a document is recorded. So they register for the program free of charge. They validate their email address, and then they can go in and add the names that they want to monitor of the property that they own within Jackson County. We were the first in Oregon to provide this free service, and it's definitely expanding. I believe over 20 counties now have it, just as fast as Helion can get them signed up into that, to be able to offer that to their property owners. We currently have about 1,600 property owners registered for PRAS notifications. Again, we'd like to expand this because we have, some 100,000 property accounts in Jackson County. And we're working on that. We completed a risk and vulnerability assessment of the elections program through the Oregon Titan Fusion Center and the Oregon Department of Justice with support from the Secretary of State. This was a follow-up to our 2019 risk and vulnerability assessment that was conducted through CISA. It is a federal program through the Department of Homeland Security that has somewhat changed since that time. We had our protective security advisors that were assigned to our area and the state of Oregon come in and help us determine some of the vulnerabilities, and then we went on a process to try and correct some of those vulnerabilities. These reports are protected, though they are not accessible via a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request by the public. We want that to remain confidential because, of course, the security of our facility and the conducting of our elections is hugely important to us, and it should be to every voter out there. Jackson County internal audit of the recording program conducted as a follow-up to previous audit and recommendations. So we're just completing right now final reports, working with our really robust and internal audit division. This follow-up was requested by myself. It was not something that the county administrator or others asked us. I wanted this because in 2010, we did our last one. And of course, we're 16 years later, we want to make sure that the processes and procedures that were implemented and some of the items during that time either remain true to this day or have those processes and procedures changed because of online services and things that we provide. So it really is a welcome, and then we welcome audit, and then we will, of course, get the outcomes from that and then make further changes according to our audit recommendations. We processed the cancellation of 4,357 inactive voters pursuant to the Secretary of State Directives 26-01 and 26-02, strengthening voter roll integrity and statutory compliance. For 26-27, the budget will include a November 2026 midterm general election and a special districts election in May of 2027, as well as potentially 2 other regularly scheduled election dates in March and in August. We rarely have election in March and August, but once in a great while we do. But they are election dates that we can potentially have elections for our voters. Will process and maintain voter registration data for an estimated 168,000 Jackson County voters. Legislative committee assignments for both the clerks recording and elections programs, the Oregon Association of County Clerks. We're very actively involved at the state as well as the federal level. In fact, I will be one of the co-chairs to our Oregon Association of County Clerks legislative committee this next year. Wish me luck. It's a lot of work in a full session. So we will be conducting upgrades to the Blue Crest high-speed ballot sorter, focusing on hardware, operating system, and other security upgrades. Those are necessary and a diligent part of what we do. Potential federal and state law changes that may affect Oregon election administration and cost of conducting elections may have fiscal impact. And of course, a lot of the items we're looking at federally, sometimes statewide, have no fiscals attached to them. So I bring that up because there very well could be things that this board and budget committee that we may have to fund depending if they're of the changes made. So I just bring that up because there are always challenges, especially when it comes to fiscals and budgets at the local level. Continued service as the Elections Assistance Commission, another acronym, the EAC, Board of Advisors Chair for fiscal year 26-27, representing Oregon and Jackson County at the national level. So at the end of this month, I will be sworn in. I'm the chair-elect right now, and I will be sworn in as chair of that commission. And all of the actual commissioners that sit on that commission are appointed by presidents. So we have 2 Democratic commissioners and 2 Republican commissioners on that commission. Security updates to the Oregon centralized voter registration by the Secretary of State are ongoing and necessary part of what we do as well. I'm asking and going to look into a marketing campaign to promote the property recording alert service registration to property owners, potentially doing a direct mailing, more social media, traditional media, and of course, speaking at community events. In fact, tomorrow, some of our Medford PD will be doing some community events, and they've asked for a flyer to be able to put on their PowerPoint presentation with the QR code that Shannon Bell created for us, which now I understand is pretty simple, but I appreciate her assisting with that. But it directly links people who wish to sign up for that program. They can just take a picture with their camera, and they can get themselves registered very simply. Since January of 22, ballot return envelopes have been accepted based on a postmark date, and that was a legislative change. Implementation requires coordination with the Secretary of State and the United States Postal Service to ensure compliant envelope design and processing procedures. A pending federal Supreme Court decision, they just took oral arguments about maybe a month ago or less. They'll have a decision regarding the legality of postmarks, and may require procedural and adjustments during the fiscal year 26-27 elections. Potentially, I believe this won't happen till November. The Supreme Court normally comes out with some of their, most of their opinions in June or early July. The clerk's office will continue monitoring these evolving regulatory, legal, and technological conditions to ensure compliance, election integrity, and operational continuity. So my sincere thanks and gratitude is given to my entire clerk's office staff. We are small but mighty, and for the continued support from all of our colleagues around the county. Thank you for your time, and I will gladly take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I have a couple of things. First one is I wanted to compliment you on bringing internal audit into your department at your request to review policies and procedures and then effect appropriate change. I think that's a smart management step, and I'm always complimentary of any department head who reports to us that they have taken that initiative and done that. So good work.
You're welcome.
I like that. The other one is, and you've somewhat touched on this, but I'd like to expand on it somewhat. The president issued an executive order eliminating mail-in ballots. I know the state of Oregon has filed a lawsuit to overturn that. Where are you at in terms of the potential that this may go into effect? And do you have any sense of the impact it's going to have on your organization if we do have to eliminate mail-in ballots and the cost of that? Or
Well, we aren't there yet. There are lots of states that have filed suit over this.
I'm aware of that.
The Constitution, and I'm not getting into the politics, but from my understanding, the Constitution of the United States gives the states sole authority over time, place, and manner of elections. That being said, we are working very closely with the Secretary of State's office as well as to our Oregon Association of County Clerks. At this point, we have no changes to our process. So I want to pass that on to our voters, that we are continuing as we always have for the May 2026 primary election. You'll receive your ballots in the mail shortly after May 1st, which is when they drop at the post office. Our ballot drop boxes will officially open on May 4th, and we will continue business as usual in Jackson County and around the state of Oregon. Now, that being said, we are in conversations with our association, our 36 Oregon County clerks and elections officials about brainstorming pretty much about the impacts, what we would do in the event of. Is also, the Congress has several bills that have been presented before it. So it's kind of a moving target at this point. And again, there are no fiscal, there's no funds attached to any of these bills that would assist the local jurisdictions. And in Oregon, the counties pay for election costs. We pay for our tally system, we pay for our ballot sorters, we pay for everything that has a touch on the footprint of elections outside the voter registration system, which is charged under the Secretary of State's office. Although we do pay funds to support the election management tool within the Oregon centralized voter registration. So at this point, no change. We are very much aware, conversations, and we want to give confidence to what we do to our voters. So at this point, there are no changes for this upcoming May election.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chris.
Welcome.
Anybody else? Colleen?
Just a comment to add that Chris not only represents us here and statewide, but when I go to the National Association of County meetings, and I was flipping through my book, and here's a picture of Chris Walker, a keynote speaker and a panelist, and she's obviously relied upon for her knowledge and experience at the national level. And because of that, she probably has a real temperature of what's going on nationally with this and has input. And so, and just represents us well. It's pretty amazing. Jackson County is highlighted in that way, and I'm just honored to go listen to her speak. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Colleen. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Chris does a great job, but I can only imagine what's going to happen now that she's revealed the mystery of the QR code to her. So look out.
Please sign up. Yes.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Chris.
And thank you, everyone.
All right, next we have the assessor. Morning, Angela.
Good morning.
We have 15 minutes allocated for your presentation today.
That's all?
Yeah.
Just to be reminded of how this works. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the Budget Committee, I'm Angela Stewart, Jackson County Assessor, here to present the 2026-27 budget for my office. We have 36.5 FTE. That's no change from last year. We have been able to net fill. We've increased our net filled positions by 3 from last year, so that's great news. We do continue to struggle with finding qualified people for positions within our office. It often requires a long time within our office in order to meet the requirements of different positions because they're highly technical. They require an extensive knowledge of the statutes and rules, and as well as statistics and computer modeling and research skills. So it's a unique combination. I'm going to give first a brief overview of the duties of my office. So generally, we place the real market value and the maximum assessed value for all property in the county. That's over 101,000 property accounts. We maintain the ownership, boundary, map, and acreage data for all of those properties. And that's all in the effort to properly levy taxes on behalf of 41 tax districts. All right, so the main source of our budget is, of course, the Jackson County, the general fund. That's nearly 80% of our budget. Another 11% comes from CAFA, which is the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance Program, and then the final 9% is from fees that our office charges. So our budget overall is approximately 5% increase over last year. I generally like to talk about how CAFA is a declining percentage of our funding. Just like ONC funds that used to make up a larger proportion of our budget, but that amount has been in decline. Our expenses have, of course, reflect an increase as well. Most of that increase, a larger proportion of the increase comes in personnel costs. That is a function of increases in the union negotiations, the cost of living, as well as making personnel changes in our office that are necessary to meet our appraisal functions and requirements. And as a result of that, we did cut some of our materials costs. There were a couple of commercial subscription services that we stopped using, and then we also were able to negotiate some better pricing for our aerial imaging. Next, I'd just like for you, as well as the public, to understand all of the things that we do. So our first major function is our cartography team. More than 28,000 documents are recorded each year, and every one of those runs through our office to determine whether there's a change in ownership or boundaries. So the net result is, like last year, 7,730 name changes. So quite a bit of accounts that need to be touched by my staff. And then in addition, there are documents that are recorded that with the Surveyor's office, that are a part of the changes that we have to make to our maps. Then, we have to make sure that the ownership is correct, that the maps are correct, boundaries, all those things. So more than 8,000 accounts each year are touched as a result of the cartographic activity that takes place. The second major function of this office is property appraisal. And I would say that half of our staff is dedicated to this function. We maintain the real market value each year as of January 1st, and we're required by statute to be at 100% of real market value, what it would sell for in the open market on January 1st at 1 a.m. Maximum assessed value is a function of Measure 50. We have to manage and properly maintain that number. That represents an increase for any new property that exceeds a certain dollar amount each year. That's also a moving number. Just most recently, last year, became indexed. So we have to manage those numbers. And then we have business personal property. This year, first time, we began e-filing, and so that's been a work in progress. You have an entirely new software program, and so our staff is kind of navigating something entirely new for them. You'll notice on the graph that there was a large jump in the 2025 tax year, and that represented some reappraisal projects that we took on. We also, as a part of that reappraisal project, we identified quite a bit of omitted property throughout the county, and that's just based on very few inspections. So I expect that if we can maintain a reappraisal program like this, we will be able to clean up and collect on behalf of the districts that we serve. So the third major function of my office is exemptions and special assessments. There are more than 4,500 accounts that are in farm special assessment. There are more than 5,200 accounts that are subject to forest special assessment. There are approximately 1,350 exemptions, and those are by application. And then, of course, we have properties that are owned by cities, the state, the county, and the U.S. That represents another 2,700 accounts that we have to maintain in our data. Again, you'll see in the graph a giant jump in 2024 in the number of accounts that we have to touch, and that is a result of the partial assessed value exemptions program for veterans. And I'm hopeful that next year in the long session there will be a fix to the increased volume of work as well as clarity with a clear credit for veterans rather than a convoluted calculation that is the current requirement. And we have to do each of those for every single veteran in individual spreadsheets and then place that information into our software program. It's onerous. And it's done during a very short window in August before we certify the tax roll. The fourth major function of the office is the ratio study and certification. And all of our work in my office kind of melds into those roles. The ratio study is we analyze every sale that comes through our office, determine whether it's an arm's length transaction. So more than 2,800 sales are used in our ratio studies. We complete statistical analysis, and then we we submit a 450 to 500 page report to the Department of Revenue that shows how property values should move in each of these very unique areas throughout the county. The second part of this is also the certification. So as we receive the applications for us to collect on behalf of the 41 tax districts, we also then have to determine the tax rates for the code areas that they uniquely combine to create. So there's over 80 code areas as a result of those 41 tax districts. Their overlays are different. And then we also share districts with Josephine County and have to calculate a rate that we share with that district. So that is a summation of most of our work. I will say before I go to questions that there were taxable changes that I expect for the 2026 year. House Bill 3940 passed in the 2025 legislative session, and it requires a change in the number of acres being collected on behalf of the rural fire protection districts. So we have to allocate value to each of the acres, and then the maximum assessed value or specially assessed value for those acres then is collected on behalf of those districts. So the net result is that I expect that 8,000 property accounts will receive an increase on their tax statements this year. Additionally, our office, for the first time in 16 years, completed a farm rent study. And as a result of that, we now have far better information than the rents. Rents from 10 years ago on 15 years ago on land are different than they are today. And so it is our responsibility to follow statute and to analyze that data. We have completed that. That may result in increases for taxpayers as well. And finally, I'd like to thank my staff, who are amazing at pivoting when necessary, stopping the press, stopping everything to move on to a special project so that we can complete it and then move back to their other responsibilities. They're really an amazing group. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you. Rick?
So it's been my observation that the assessor's office is operating just much more efficiently, much more effectively in recent years. But several years ago, there were some current concerns with policies and procedures that we worked with the Department of Revenue, and there were some recommendations developed. And I know a lot of them were short-term, kind of low-hanging fruit, but some of them also long-term issues. Have we worked through those? Are we still?
That's ongoing. We are in year 4 out of the original 5-year major project plan. And we've just done a ton of, what we have to do is build models and then we write the code, we write the valuation code in our computer systems. We put in the right information from the property, from the properties that we observe, and then we validate that the outcome, that the dollar amounts that are calculated against the sale prices. And that is a function of the ratio study as well as administrative rule. And so yes, we're making great progress. But
we can see the finish line, as
right,
you're saying.
it's still out of my, it's still just a little further out of reach. So I've got another year, and I think 2 years, and we will have 99% of the projects done.
Great.
Okay. Yeah. Randy?
When I was at NACO last year, I went through a assessing AI presentation. Are you researching or looking at any potential AI assistance for a lot of the analysis and evaluation that you do?
Not yet, and the big reason for that is the administrative rule. The Department of Revenue has a very clear set of requirements in order for them to review our analytics, right? So they review the 450 or 500 to 500 pages that we provide, as well as numerous spreadsheets that include time studies and other things. All of the statistical background gets reviewed by them. So it has to be consistent at the state level for them to understand the data. So at this point, using those would have to require every county to use the same methodology.
Okay. Anything else, Danny?
Yeah, I want to add on to that question Commissioner Sparacino asked. I actually attempted to run an AI simulation about a property tax question. Oregon's property tax system is so unique with maximum assessed value versus real market value that AI didn't get any of it right. I know Commissioner Dyer has also ran something and brought it to me, and we had to pick it apart. It's not even close. AI, it really has a hard time interpreting Oregon tax law because there's all of these special issues involved in it. But I do want to say that my staff meet with Angela at least monthly. Yeah. Angela works day and night, weekends. She travels. She's training her staff. She's doing all the work that wasn't getting done for a long time. She's just been doing an amazing job, and it's really refreshing to my office. I don't believe we've received one complaint from any of her staff. She may have received some complaints, but previously it was multiple staff that would come forth from that office with, really low morale and issues. And she's But probably by far, in my opinion, and not that my opinion matters because I'm not the one that elects her, but she's by far probably the best elected assessor we've had in my career here, and I just want to acknowledge her for that.
Good job, Angela.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next is Surveyor. Morning, Scott. Scott, I think we have 15 minutes for you today.
Sir, good morning, members of the Budget Committee, Board of Commissioners, Morning County Administrator. I'm Scott Fine. I'm the elected Jackson County Surveyor. I think this is my 13th or 14th time presenting the budget. Actually, I had the good fortune of working in this office back to 2006 under two prior county surveyors. So really have a very deep understanding of what we're doing there and how the money works. And before I delve into the excellent work that we do, how we efficiently use the funds, I just want to explain to everybody who's listening what core functions of the county surveyor's office are. And we live in the world of real property, things that have land title, as opposed to personal property, even things that have titles such as vehicles. There's a fundamental legal difference. And everything related to real property is our basis of taxation, land ownership, water rights, roads, easements, like mission critical, foundational for society to exist. We live in the world of whose is what and where it is, and the written and physical records related to the land. And we take it very seriously. If I was recently talking to our county auditor and explained to them, if you ever run into a surveyor that doesn't take it seriously, or especially a county surveyor who doesn't take it seriously, they probably just shouldn't be a surveyor, period, let alone the county surveyor. Because this is, if you really think about what I just said, this is about the land, and we all inhabit it and are trying to peacefully cohabitate within it. And really the system of government, taxation, and resource management is based off of land and the legal description and surveying. So with all that said, we have two programs of work, and as I go through each, I'll explain where the money comes from or what we do with it. Typically, I usually go through the Surveyor program first in this presentation, but I'm actually going to discuss the Corner Restoration Program because it really is that foundation. This is the United States Public Land Survey System, dates back to 1785, created township, range, and section. Here in Oregon, in Jackson County, we had actually first surveys started at Willamette Stone Park, Portland area, Township 1-1. You know, we're all the way down here in 41 South. Each township is 36 square miles, 6 by 6. So those corners that were established by the federal government are still mission critical, in play today for the description and location of real property. Every legal description has to be tied to a public land survey corner, or a corner of a parcel of a partition plat, or a lot corner of a subdivision plat. But those plats, the exterior boundary, as we make small little town lots, have to be tied back to the public land survey system. When everyone stretches their legs today, I hope to take a walk over to Alba Park, and there is the quarter corner that was established by Medford's first mayor, J.S. Howard, and there's a commemorative plaque there. It's the beginning of the town site of Medford. And in terms of real world application, when I surveyed the HHS building when it used to be the post office years ago, the legal description commenced at that corner. So these things are still in play today. We have roughly about 20,000 corners in the county. What our job with those is to make sure that they stay where they are and they don't move, and we keep exceptional records on them. And level of precision that we're working to, I mean, we're dealing with hundredths of a foot, you know, sub-inch level. Because in surveying, and, you know, obviously if anyone knows anything about trigonometry, if you have an error in a triangle, further you go, it projects, and you essentially have to what us surveyors refer to as maintain control over the boundaries with these marks. And so the funding for this program comes through the county clerk's office, $10 per document. It's been the same fee since 1986. The funds are expressly dedicated in law. There's some very unique authority given to the county surveyor over the use of those funds. They're very, very restricted. I feel like since I've been the surveyor, I've done an outstanding job about being transparent and very accountable for using what those funds are, because prior to my time, that was an issue. And maybe on some days a little too rigid in the use of the funds, but I just take that very seriously. It's spelled out in Chapter 225 of our codified ordinances even further. And so the Board of Commissioners back in 1985, when they established that, they obviously listened to County Surveyor Ed McGinney at the time for how specific these things should be to protect it for this purpose of these corners, because everything relies on it. So in terms of dollars that are coming in at the moment, clerk's recordings are about 50% of what they've normally been. The normal is about 35,000 docs per year. We've lived off that since 1986. The way we've done that is like when we've had years like 21, 22, where we've got sub 3% interest rates, which no one thought would ever happen, and we record 60,000 documents. So over the life cycle of this, I call it riding the wave, but like we're up on the highs and the lows, and we've never overstaffed. We've never spent, any funds unnecessarily. There is a fund balance there. There are some funds earmarked in it for capital expenditures, which is survey equipment. To that note, if you look at in the budget, we have capital expenditures in both programs, but we haven't spent the money yet. We have equipment that's past the life expectancy. I'm not going to go spend, as a county surveyor, expense, $100,000 on survey equipment, GPS receivers, total stations, until they either break and just won't work anymore, become incompatible from a software standpoint, or just some new technology comes out that we can become more efficient. So we have the funds earmarked. We bought some, I believe it was this past year. We had, literally a button fall off a GPS receiver, and it's like, okay, we need to buy one. So that's how, we have some funds earmarked there. But really our big expense is personnel. You need very smart, qualified people to be surveyors. We're lucky in that regard. In terms of important things that we've accomplished in this program within the last year or so, within the urban growth boundaries and every corporate city limit, we have visited, restored, maintained, and geodetically controlled with statutory coordinates every single public land survey corner within the city limits in UGB. We were just losing them, and it was just a consistent fight, so I put the field crews on it, and that's where we focused. So that's a real positive. We were working on corners that nobody had worked on in 30 to 50 years, and the private surveyors really appreciated it. All of a sudden, we started seeing a bunch more surveys getting done, because the ability for the private surveyor to locate that corner quickly keeps the cost down for the private landowner. It's the greater good of that program. So in the sake of time, I'll kind of move on from the corner program, and but before I wrap up on it, just understand these corners, these records, every private surveyor, every title company, every landowner is relying on these corners to locate and describe property, as is the tax assessor, as is the water master, right, to deal with the water rights location. They're just super important. So these corners related to the surveyor program of the office, which is our review of maps and plats, because state law says before we can record boundary surveys, lot line adjustments, partition plats, subdivision plats, or condominium plats, the county surveyor shall make sure these certain things have occurred. And so we have to have accurate corner records in order to make sure that the surveying is accurate. And so when we go through the map and plat reviews, we're looking at the land title, the survey history, really the legal components of what makes up a survey, not just the measurement. and not just the numbers. And we really work with the private surveyors to make sure that I would say we have flawless records and flawless products, and we really don't have a lot of boundary disputes in this county. And that's because we work with the private sector and title companies to uphold that professional standard. And I would say, I think just the work of the quality of the work that comes out of the county surveyor's office really speaks for itself. The records, the title industry, and how we're using the funds efficiently. We only have 5.5 people. They're split, 2 people on the corner program, 3 people on the surveyor program. Within the surveyor program, there's essentially almost like 2 divisions. There's the map and plat review, and then there's the records side, because we have records going back to even before statehood in the surveyor's office that still matter. And one of them actually came up the other day related to a road in the Applegate. Maybe I'm just strange and I find that history fascinating, that it still matters today, but like this is, like I said, it's real property. So those records really count. We have an exceptionally talented in-house GIS person that we've really gone through a lot of the paper records. We're still not done. I don't know if it will ever end. Now we're really getting deep into our county road records because we've had some issues with county roads. And it's all pertained to finding the record and monuments. So funds for this program to essentially what I call keep the lines and corners straight, work with the private sector, and get these things filed and have that constructive notice of all these records. The money comes from the map and plat review. One thing I will say that has been a challenge is we picked up, was about, I want to say in 21, City of Ashland no longer had a city surveyor. Fortunately, at the time, we had an extra help FTE, and I want to say we limped it along, but I think it was in 23, we added a half-time FTE where City of Ashland had a in-house full-time city surveyor for years, checking their maps and plats. What's challenging about Ashland is they have some of the most unique land title history and earliest plats in the county, and then they've got unique land development laws that let them do things in a very tight manner that the plats just take more time. And so from a fee standpoint, as we've been working with the auditor, trying to account for that, right, of like, how do we, let's say, charge people who are doing development in Ashland more? I don't necessarily think that's fair for this inherent system, but that's just a real world challenge there. We have the same issue in Jacksonville. What's different is why this, I'm going to say, burdened us a little bit a couple years ago is the fact that we just became responsible for it. City of Medford has a city surveyor. They take care of their own plats. We still have some function in it, though, with the recording of it. But it really speaks for itself when you look at the few number of affidavits of correction, right? That's where it's like we all had a human moment and we missed something and it got recorded. I think we had like under 4 last year, and we recorded like 400 something surveys. So we're talking like less than 1%. The county surveyor's office and the private folks, like we had a human moment. I think that's pretty impressive and shows that we're all taking it seriously. The funding side of this has become challenging, like I explained with the corner program, just because of the swings in the clerk's recordings. This board, I think, Commissioner Dyer, you were here in 14 when we enacted the surveyor services fee, and that was, I remember, worked very closely with Danny on that. We were trying to figure out for these unfunded mandates that are in ORS 209 related to the records, because we're not part of the general fund, we're a special revenue fund, and it was, I would say for that, like I'm, as a county surveyor, forever grateful, because that enabled us to keep the office open in terms of conveying the records and really have somebody full-time work on these things that ultimately have made it more efficient. And I would say if we look where we are, where we've come from that time, almost a decade later, We recently had a very large engineering company move into the valley. And no, they came out of the Portland area. It's AKS Engineering. They purchased a number of survey companies and also engineering companies. And I knew a number of the surveyors that had been doing work down here. And I think when we see that, that just shows how well we're working with the private sector, that you want to have a corporation like that make an investment in Southern Oregon where we've never had that before. And just overall, just really proud of what we do, and it's our staff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Questions or comments for Scott?
Just to clarify, I was not here in 2014. I was here January 2015, but I believe that program was developed after that.
Yeah, that's correct, Rick. Yeah, you were, I believe, yeah, I remember going to some of the board meetings with that, and just,
Hasn't been quite that long, but close.
Close. It's, but on that note, just like to just compliment you for the wisdom that you had with it, because it is, I think we're all at this organization very conscientious of our fiducial responsibilities, especially fees, and we don't take that lightly, and just grateful for it. Thank you.
Just make sure I mention too, both Colleen, Commissioner Roberts and I were there.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Thank you, Colleen.
Anything else, folks? Okay, thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to move into public comment. We will allocate 3 minutes to anybody who wants to make public comment. We'll address folks in the audience first. For those of you who are on Zoom, if you use the raise the hand feature, someone on staff will recognize you, and we will listen to your comment at the appropriate moment. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to come forward for public comment? Okay, do we have anybody who's raised their hand on Zoom, Carmen?
Mr. Chair, there's no one on Zoom with their hand raised.
Okay, great. Then we will move on to a break, and we will be back from break at 10:40. That gives us 10 minutes. Thank you.
Run upstairs real quick.
Okay, let's come back to order, please. Committee members, I just wanted to mention to you before we break for lunch today, I will, as I've always done in the past, poll each one of you individually to see if you have items that you want to put on a list for deliberation. So just giving you a heads up that you can think about that for the next few minutes and before we get to that point. With that, we will move to Board of Commissioners presentation. Shannon, thank you for being here.
Thank you. So members of the board, members of Budget Committee, Chair Morse, I'm here to present the Board of Commissioners budget for 26-27. So I just wanted to get into a high-level view of what this recommended budget represents. So the Board of Commissioners, they maintain core governance and policy leadership functions. So this budget continues to support the county's core responsibilities, which is ensuring stable governance, policy direction, and organizational leadership. So it supports the county's strategic priorities. This recommended budget is aligned with the board's strategic priorities. If you happen to read the budget book, you might have noticed that the departmental priorities, their performance measures and goals were all up-leveled this year as part of this goal. And it does reflect a modest and controlled growth. It's very intentional with the department. So most importantly, this budget does support a structurally balanced approach, our ongoing revenues and supports ongoing expenditures, which is critical for long-term sustainability. So budget at a glance, this is really just a maintenance budget. The total budget is $1,124,695. It's about a $34,000 increase from last year, which is 3.1%. FTE is staying at 5.5 personnel, which is no change from the prior year, and there's no new programs or expansions. So the sources and uses of funds. So this shows how the budget is funded and where the dollars are going. We always talk about Board of Commissioners is central service, so most of their revenue comes from chargebacks. I did delineate this down a little bit more on the left side, that the chargebacks are about 30% comes from the special revenue funds. Biggest one of our special revenue funds is, of course, HHS, which is one of our largest funds in the county, followed by the enterprise funds, which is Parks and Expo and the airport. And then we also have some smaller contributions. They get a small piece of the allocation from Video Lottery and our special districts as they serve on their boards as well. And on the right side, you can see where the money goes. Story's pretty straightforward. This is a personnel-driven department, and about 92% is dedicated to the personnel costs for the commissioners and their staff, with the remaining roughly 8% going to materials and services. So what this is really telling us that this department is primarily service-based. Its value is delivering through people rather through equipment or capital. So this slide shows how this budget is This slide shows how this department work aligns with the board's strategic priorities. So the department has a role across multiple priority areas rather than just one. So they're concerned with public safety and wildfire advocacy. It's front and center on our county's agenda. There's alignment here through coordination, planning, and support functions that contribute to overall county preparedness and response efforts. There's community engagement and transparency. We always aim to be as transparent as absolutely possible through day-to-day operations and interactions, ensuring that information, services, and processes are accessible and understandable to the public. There's economic vitality and resilient communities. We maintain stable operations and supporting core county functions. This department contributes to a reliable environment that supports broader economic and community resilience. And finally, fiscal stewardship and long-term stability. Most directly, this department supports this by maintaining a disciplined, stable budget and ensuring resources are used efficiently and sustainably over time. So the key challenges ahead that will continue to shape not just this department, but the county as a whole. We've got state and federal policy impacts. We continue to see uncertainty in both the state and federal levels, whether that's funding, mandates, or policy changes, and you've heard that from a lot of our departmental directors in the last couple of days. These external factors can have downstream impacts on operations and financial planning. There's wildfire risk in land management. Wildfire risk remains a significant issue in our region, as well as land management, which continues to influence how we plan, coordinate, and our resource needs across the county. Economic growth and infrastructure demands. As the community grows, there are increasing demands on infrastructure and services. Balancing that growth with available resources will continue to be an ongoing challenge. So while this budget is stable today, there's all types of pressures that are continued to monitor as we look ahead. So in summary, it's a modest, well-controlled budget growth. Like I said, it's only about 3% change. We have no staffing changes. We're in a strong financial position for this department, and we continue alignment with our county priorities. And that's it.
Yeah, well said that it's a modest budget, because it is. I know you mentioned that the materials and services portion was just a sliver of the total budget, and of that sliver, if memory serves me correct, the biggest portion dollar-wise is travel for the commissioners.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And my understanding is the commissioners travel when needed to represent the county at the state and federal level, which I think is important work for the taxpayers of Jackson County.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So any comments or questions on the commissioner's budget? Yeah,
I'll just
Colleen?
add on the Shannon QR code creator. I have a wonderful QR code she made with all of our wildfire policies, even with the update that our resolution at the National Association of Counties on fire and smoke and prevention and coordination is now a format, part of the platform of NACO, and she got that new change put on that QR code. So I still use that everywhere I go, and in fact am meeting and have met with the new Federal Wildfire Council director and presented our QR code, which I think they really are utilizing in their new policies and how they're fighting fire. So,
and it is on a nice little graphic too, so
I don't know if you guys have that. I should get you a copy because it's really beautiful. It's really, I'm proud of presenting it. She makes us look good. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts.
Anything else? Okay, before you move to your next subject, a small housekeeping matter. Carmen, do you have the documents with the potential motions on them to be distributed? Okay, I'll be asking you to do that sometime soon, so, okay, good. Great, thank you. Okay, if you want to proceed with county administration. Thank you, Shannon.
Be happy to, thank you. All right, let her get the slides up. So I'll start. So today I'll be walking through the county administration budget for fiscal year 2026-2027. County administration serves as the central coordination point for countywide operations, risk management, and strategic services. It's where policy direction, organizational leadership, and operational support come together. As noted here, this department supports countywide operations, manages risks, and provides strategic services that enable departments across the organization to function effectively. Unlike many departments, county administration doesn't deliver a single direct service. It supports all services within the county. So to give a clearer picture of what that looks like in practice, this slide breaks down the range of services within county administration. We've got leadership and oversight at the core. This is at the core, which includes county administration and internal audit. These functions provide organizational direction, accountability, and ensure we are operating effectively and in alignment with board priorities. We have risk and financial protection. We manage the risk and financial protection through general liability and our self-insurance health insurance program. These functions are critical to protecting the county's financial position while managing exposure. Then we have operational support, which is facilities, human resources, and the mail courier. They're foundational services that departments rely on in every day-to-day. And finally, specialized services like emergency management, the water master, and the law library. These serve specific but important roles, often with some regulatory, public safety, or community-facing impacts. So beyond the structure of the department, this slide really speaks to the value the county administration provides across the organization. At the highest level, this department is about supporting every other department every day. So we enable daily operations. Many of these functions operate behind the scenes, but they are essential to keeping day-to-day functions running smoothly across the county. We protect the county with risk and insurance, plays a critical role in protecting the county through risk management insurance programs that helps manage financial exposure. We ensure compliance, accountability, and transparency. There's also a strong focus on these as we meet regulatory requirements and maintain public trust. We provide specialized statutory services. There's some that are required by statute, meaning they're not optional. They're core responsibilities that the county must provide. To help explain what's driving this budget, here are a few key factors influencing costs and priorities, and this is overarching across the entire county. Rising operational costs, we see increases in general operating costs, supplies, services, and vendor costs. They're consistent with broader inflation pressures. We have increased demand for countywide services. As the organization grows and evolves, there are increased demand for centralized support services, whether that's HR, facilities, or administrative coordination. This department absorbs much of that demand. We have investment in facilities and infrastructure. There's a continued need to invest in facilities and infrastructure, both to maintain existing assets and also to address emerging needs. And finally, risk management and insurance cost trends. We're seeing ongoing pressure in risk management and insurance costs, which is a trend impacting jurisdictions more broadly. So this slide just highlights a few of our key countywide services. It's not a comprehensive list. You did hear from Nicole Rollins from Internal Audit last year. She did a presentation, but I just wanted to highlight some of the other functions to get a sense of the work happening within county administration. We've got emergency management. They coordinate countywide preparedness and response, facility maintenance that maintains county infrastructure and operations, internal audit, which improves processes and strengthens accountability, and human resources, which supports recruitment, retention, and workforce development. So this slide shows how county administration funds are allocated across the program areas. The most important takeaway here is a significant portion of the budget, it's a $48 million budget, is driven by insurance and risk-related costs. Health insurance is about 50% of the budget. It's countywide costs that flows through the department through a self-insurance program, so it makes up a substantial share of the total. Second biggest is risk. About 23% is related to risk management. So together, health insurance and risk is nearly 3/4 of the budget. The next biggest piece is facility maintenance. It's about 13%, which supports county buildings and infrastructure. Administration and support is about just under 10%. And then the smaller areas, emergency management and other specialized services, represent a very small portion individually. So while it appears to be a large budget overall, most of it is in insurance and risk. So I did this slide for you, Chair Morris. This is our risk reserves. So this looks a little bit deeper look at risk, insurance claims, and costs in our reserve position over time. It starts with our claims. The top chart is see a significant increase in recent years. We were pretty flat for a long time. We saw a sharp rise in 24-25 with continued elevated levels of actual and anticipated claim costs. So this reflects both higher severity and frequency of claims, which is consistent with broader trends that we're seeing. The insurance premium, the next chart down, is our insurance premiums for property and excess claims have also increased over time. We saw a notable jump just a few years ago, and while they've stabilized somewhat, we still remain at that higher baseline. And then between the rising claims and sustained higher premiums, that is a significant cost driver within our budget. And then over on the right is our risk reserves. Despite these pressures, the county, we still maintain a strong level, although we're in the yellow, and definitely lower than prior years. We are making some changes to move the needle, but it's not an instant correction. So looking ahead, administration is continuing to look at operational efficiency, focus that we're using our resources effectively in supporting departments in delivering services. There's also an ongoing emphasis on strategic facility and infrastructure planning, both maintaining what we have and planning for future needs. We will continue strengthening risk management practices while maintaining strong and sustainable financial position and supporting evolving needs, and the organization continues to evolve. This department will adapt to support changing countywide needs. So overall, this is a steady forward-looking approach focused on stability, efficiency, and long-term stability. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I just add one thing to that? Where you looked at the graph for the risk reserves, I just want to be a little more pointed. The increase in those claims is mostly specifically related to public safety and mostly specifically related to the sheriff's department. So I just want to be clear that generally, if we took that out, that would look flat still.
Right. I wanted to thank you for that slide. You know that's my favorite topic to talk about, and so you kind of headed me off, but I'm still going to talk about it.
Go ahead.
It's going to be more as a comment for the general public. The county self-insured general liability and health insurance over the past how many years, I'm not quite sure. First general liability and then health insurance.
Yeah, health insurance was maybe 15, 14 years ago, and then
Yeah.
general liability's been way longer than that.
And the county has saved a huge amount of money by going through self-insurance. And I emphasize this because it's worth the risk. Yes, there's a challenge that the reserves are a little bit lower than they have been in the past for the reasons that we've already talked about. But I am assured at our March meeting that they are still adequate and fall within the standards that are recommended for self-insured reserves. But it's something that we always must keep our eye on, and as long as I'm on this committee, I will always be asking. Great little shot there. I appreciated that, having that screen.
You're welcome. And we are still over 100% of actuarial reserve rate recommendation.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay.
We have always met the actuarial reserve. I get uncomfortable because I like to have a lot more than the actuarial reserve, but we're starting to slowly build it back.
Yeah, I'm confident you will. Yeah. Other folks? Questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
We're now going to move to Expo. Rob, good morning.
Morning.
Rob, I think we have 10 minutes for you today.
I think that's wonderful.
Good.
Alrighty, yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I'm Rob. I get the honor of managing the Expo. And although that Shannon has not made me any barcodes, you know, I do appreciate the support that she gives the Expo and helps keep us financially sound. You know, and my thing is the Expo, I think I like being last because I get to be fun because the Expo is where all the fun happens in the county. So, you know, the Expo's mission is to provide community services for social, agricultural, recreational, and commercial and educational opportunities for the citizens of Jackson County. And that's what we do every day, all day long. We have seen an increase in rentals in everything that happens at the Expo across the board. From a staffing standpoint, we are currently sitting at 5 FTEs with 1 vacant position, and I have 3 express personnel temp sources or temp employees, and they all work their tails off and they do a great job. And as we know, the fair is the key to what happens at the Expo, and last year's fair ended up really well. We had some We had some great concerts that were well attended. We ended up with it looks like we're going to end about a $448,000 net contribution from the fair last year. That is amazing. But looking ahead to this next fiscal year, concert sales are already trending up, doing well. Tickets are selling. We'll go on sale with our regular fair tickets in a couple weeks for admission. We've dealt with rising costs across the board, but we're looking at everything we're doing and trying to eliminate things that aren't necessary or doing things differently to save some money wherever we can to keep our net contribution up where it needs to be. Our budget is conservative across the board, not just for the fair, but for everything, because I'd rather come back and have to say I have extra revenue and didn't spend all my money than have to come back and ask for money, because I know that county administration wouldn't like that. So, so this next year we're looking at, for our budget is a net contribution of just over $300,000 from the fair alone. So that's where, so on the holiday market and the rodeo, we produce 3 of our own events: the fair, the holiday market, and the rodeo. The holiday market is, it's amazing to me. It's a free event to the public, but it has a net contribution to us of $40,000 from the people who buy booth space at the event. And then the rodeo, we've made a big change over the last several years. Last year, the rodeo had a net contribution of over $78,000, which is a far cry from 4 years ago or so, where we were like, ooh, we got to at least break even. So, but one of the really encouraging things for this coming year, for the rodeo that's happening in June, is Lisa has done a great job with sponsors. She's moved that from last year we had $103,000 in cash sponsors for the rodeo. This year we have $150,000 in commitments for cash sponsors for just the rodeo. So that's looking really good, moving in the right direction. And then the other big thing that we do is rentals. We do this every day, all day long. There's some great things going on with the rental budget. This last year was the first year that the rental net was better than the fair. So we're not living off the fair, we're living off rentals, and that makes everything better all around. We're seeing about a 44% usage rate for the current Expo. For over the course of the year. And there's in the budget, like last year, our projected budget, we're trying to get to a $500,000 net contribution, but it looks like we're going to end up just over $600,000. Next year, we're going to try to, our budget is proposing for $741,000. That incorporates a little bit of in from the new building at the same time. And then in our budget overview, we are asking for about an 80% increase because of the new multipurpose building. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But we've done, sorry, I lost my place, I'm sorry. So yeah, the budget has been, we've asked for an increase of $2.6 million, about 80% more, to cover the startup costs and the opening of the new building, along with staffing it and managing that. We've done a lot of things out at the Expo to kind of make things nicer. We've got new signs on almost all the buildings now that show wayfinding, so it's easier to find out which building is what. We've painted like the corners of buildings and branded those with the sponsors for those buildings when we could. We've added some signage to the Mace building, and we got to paint the pageant building, so it actually is not, no offense to the sheriff's office, it's not prison gray, so. And then the new building is coming online. We're excited about the new building. These pictures are a couple of weeks old, so the building already doesn't look like this inside. It is moving so fast. It's like amazing each week when we get our updates how fast they're almost everything's sheetrock now inside the building. So, and then, so in the new facility budget, we are projecting a $2 million in revenues and about $1.7 million in materials and services, and then $393,000 in startup costs as far as to purchase equipment, purchase the office furniture and the general, we call the gathering space, the common areas in the building between us and Central Point, so that it all matches and all looks awesome. We do have a great agreement in place with Central Point, thanks to the county administration, with a 35-year lease for their Parks Department, moving into 30%-ish, 29% of the building. And so that will help us fund that moving forward, and help pay back the additional costs for getting it built. The funds all came from ARPA funds, and along with some county investing, and along with Central Point helping us out. And then just looking ahead, we're continuing, like I said, we're going to keep cost controls under control as much as we can. One of the strangest things is bingo. I had to put it up there just because we do bingo 8 months a year, and it's got a net contribution of $3,100 a month is what it worked out this year. I'm like, I would have never guessed. But
Only once per month.
yeah, we do it once per month, one night a month for 3.5 hours. So it's quite a good deal. So, all right, and then if had any other questions.
I do want to clarify a few
Okay, go ahead,
things.
Danny.
So we're setting this budget up this way. We've talked about the budget committee about front loading the new project to get it set up and running. We're setting this up accounting wise in its own program. So it won't be intermingled with any of the other Fair and Expo activities. We want to see it be able to stand alone, and we do anticipate at least a 3-year contribution in not just startup, but operations. We were very conservative. I think we budgeted about $100,000 in revenues, if I remember correctly.
No, it's more than that.
What for rentals?
For rentals, I think was.
Well, let me just put it this way.
I think we have just about because it's only a half a year, because it comes online January 1. So I think I have like $500,000.
Okay. So we're very conservative. We anticipate it's likely to be a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. We've actually already rented the facility, and the lease payment will go to pay back the county's portion of general fund, which, as I explained, probably nets about only $1 million at this point. Then that becomes discretionary revenue. It's not guaranteed to the fair, but we will use it. We'd like to see this program get up on its feet and self-sustaining as soon as possible. That will generate an operating revenue for the county or an investment revenue for the county. So we do believe this will be self-supporting, especially because we don't have any debt service. So all we have to do is make some money and cover the operating expenses, and then the additional increment will be net income.
Yeah. And I guess I'd like to add too, I got lost in my notes, but we are working with a company, Kemper Sports, we're in the contract process right now, that they will help us get this up and running in a hurry. They are going to, they'll help us with our budgets, programming, sponsorships, including creating the policies, the waivers that people need to sign for legal and risk. They'll help us get all that stuff set up, and then they'll also help us run the building
And market.
and market the building as we move forward.
They know people that play ping pong.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And they've talked to us several times about things for generating revenue in the building that we hadn't thought about before. So we're excited to have them on board.
Good. Smart move to set up a special program for, yeah, very good. Colleen?
Oh, I'll just add, Rob says this is a place for fun, but he works his tail off there. And I will tell you, as a liaison, I'm the liaison to the Fair Board, it's the hardest group of passionate people. They're very impressive, and they're amazing to see them all put it together. So good job.
Thank you.
I'll just
April?
I'm interested, what kinds of things did they suggest that you hadn't thought of?
Well, Central Point's putting in a teaching kitchen, and I was just thinking, Parks and Rec teaching, but they're like, no, bring in these executive chefs. People pay you $150, $200 a piece to do a special dinner with an executive chef.
Like a
create
cook and learn.
create your own dinner, and then stuff like that we hadn't thought of. Lots of different things.
Yeah, I think there's things that they haven't even thought of. This building could just endless numbers of uses. And I'll say I toured it with a couple individuals that were interested in potentially looking at renting it. One of them immediately booked. The other one was extremely interested in facilitating his entire program, which I won't mention who it is, but it's a big program, and it's one that would utilize the facility in a way that I think is not just beneficial because of the revenue it generates, but for the community as well. A lot of really great programs that are just going to enhance recreational opportunities and again, just benefit the entire community in a lot of ways. So I'm excited about it. I think it's a great project, and glad we were able to get it done.
Yeah, just to dovetail on that for a minute, one of the other ideas, well, not ideas that we hadn't thought of, but that they're very big, this company, Kemper's very big on doing local community league play and tournaments and having your own local ones where other places may be looking for out-of-town ones so that they get the hotel revenue and to fund their facility. We're just trying to keep where we're not meeting the needs of the locals, and that's hopefully where we're going to shine.
Some of the prior consultants that we got reports from talked a lot about transient lodging tax, and doesn't benefit the county. But in a city project, they build that into revenues because it means something to the city. So for the county, working locally is as effective or more effective than bringing things from out of town. That's what Shannon's getting at there. Also, I don't know if there's as premium of a facility in our county. I know we have Rogex, but we don't have a pool, but we have some things that they don't have to offer. Like said, Central Point has a teaching kitchen. We have a commercial kitchen. We built this with a commercial kitchen. That's not available at Rogex. And I know this will appeal to some people and maybe not to others, but we also have a beer garden, which is something that Rogex doesn't have, but it allows us.
And concessions inside the building.
Inside the building. So I think it's going to be a premier location for a whole lot of things. We still have some minor lease agreement and operating agreement language to amend, and us and Central Point have worked well back and forth, making numerous amendments. This has been a great partnership between the Fair Board, the county, and the city, and we've all worked well together. We've barely not got along every now and then, but we've all come together to I think we're going to deliver the community a very impressive option.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's worked in local youth sports, coaching and running these, this is a huge need, and it's a huge need that was partially served by Rogex, but they have a different business model where they do more out of town. So this is something that there's a lot of local programs really looking forward to, and it's gonna be just an absolute boon for them. So again, I'm excited about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job. All right, last Tuesday, the Elected Officials Salary Review Committee met. That committee is made up of the 3 lay or community members of this Budget Committee, which are Lynn Barton, April Sevick, and myself. And to report to the entire Budget Committee what our recommendation is for this year after thorough review of the existing salary administration plan that was developed, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago. Danny's going to present that all to us. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, typically I go over the entire process that the Elected Officials Salary Review Committee went over. I'm actually not going to go over all that this year, and the reason why is because that meeting now was broadcast over Zoom and made public. We had people in public attendance and the media in public attendance. Well, I'm not going to duplicate that unless you think it's necessary. What I do want to say is in my whole career here, I always get amazed that every year the media writes the first story about our budget about what elected officials' salary increase was. And I know that's not necessarily part of the discussion, but it never ceases to amaze me because we have a $700 million budget, a $288 million operating budget, and we deliver amazing services that you heard all about today. And you know, inside I would just hope that the media would take some time to talk about some of the amazing stuff that we do, and in this case, not focus on a 2.76% cost of living adjustment that elected officials will get. I doubt that I'll see that dream ever happen in my career, just based on my prior experience. But as Chair Morris explained, we do have the equivalent of what is the county administration comp plan, where we take each elected official's position and we rank it as if it had been an appointed position within our pay plan. That really focuses on internal equity, which is a primary concern in the law that governs how elected officials' compensation is set and what items that the elected official salary review committee shall consider. We went over each of those issues again with the salary review committee. The salary review committee is not limited to those issues. It just says they shall consider those. With that said, when we met for budget targets, when we met for budget reviews, we did mention all along the way that we're proposing for managers, administrative staff, and elected officials a 2.76% cost of living adjustment. That would go into effect the July 13th, 2026 payroll. You'll have a board order that shows that increase, along with step increases for those elected officials that would be in the equivalent appointed pay plan. There are only 3 of those that will have a step this year. It's our assessor, who you heard from today, will be going from step 2 to step 3. We have one commissioner, Commissioner Sparacino. Sorry about that one. Has anyone ever called you that before? Oh. Okay, I don't feel bad about it.
It's back now.
I just had this image in my head that probably wasn't. We'll go from step 2 to step 3. And our district attorney, who you heard from on Tuesday, will go in the county stipend plan from step 2 to step 3. The county, for the purpose of the public, doesn't pay the district attorney's salary. We provide a supplement to the salary to incent people to hopefully run for the office. All of the same rules that I've covered in the past apply. We didn't make any changes to all of the exceptions that are in law. For example, if we were to appoint a new sheriff during the term, that person comes in at step 1 of the equivalent pay plan, unless the law requires the sheriff be the highest salaried person in his office. So if there's a person higher salary, the sheriff would come in at the next step that's in the equivalent pay plan that's higher than the highest paid salaried person in their department. So there's all of those exceptions. Really don't want to go through all of them again because we already did that. And that's what's before you, a 2.76% pay increase for all elected officials, and then 3 that I just reviewed would move 1 step. All of the other elected officials are at the top step, so there's no more movement. And unless there's something else you want me to cover, Mr. Chair, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions anybody have for Danny or for me in regards to that? Okay. We're going to go to public comment for the last time. We'll allocate 3 minutes for anybody who wants to make a comment to us. We'll look to the audience first of all, and then we will look to those folks who are on Zoom. If you're on Zoom and you wish to make a comment, please use your raise the hand feature and staff will acknowledge you and we will listen to your comment in time. So anyone in the audience wish to make public comment? Okay, seeing nobody. How about on Zoom? Anybody have their hand up?
Mr. Chair, there's no one on Zoom with their hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Now, according to our agenda, it's lunchtime. However, before we consider lunchtime, I'd like to poll each one of you, as I indicated earlier, to see if there are any items that you would like to deliberate on when we go into deliberations. So, April, I'm going to start with you. Do you have anything you would like?
I do not.
Okay. Randy, how about you? Okay, Rick?
I have none.
Okay, Lynn?
No.
Colleen?
No, none.
Okay, I don't have any either. I want to just talk about that for a second for the public. So this committee didn't just meet Tuesday and today. We met, first of all, in November in a public meeting where we discussed and agreed on budget targets. Then those targets were passed forward to the department heads so they could complete their draft budget for 26-27. This committee then met and looked at draft budget numbers in March with each individual department head. Each one came forward to us individually and met with the budget committee, again in a public meeting. We had the draft budget. We, being each one of the 6 members of this committee, had the draft budget in binder form to be able to take home and review, call in and ask questions, understand, etc. And then we had full day of hearings on Tuesday, a half day of hearings today, listening to each department head describe their budget and make their presentation. The salary review committee met on Tuesday and reviewed the salary administration plan for elected officials. So there's been a lot of work that's been done. So when you hear us say we don't have anything for deliberation, well, actually, we've been talking about living with and understanding the budget since last November. So it's not really a surprise to me that we're at a place where we can move forward and maybe delay lunch and go ahead and approve the budget. So is everyone comfortable with that, that we just go ahead and take that step and then we'll go to lunch? Okay, sounds like we are. So if you can distribute those motion plans. The first motion that I'll be looking for will be in a motion, I believe, to accept the recommendation of the elected official salary review committee.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. So as soon as someone is prepared to make a motion, I would love that.
Chairman Morris?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to move approval of the elected official salary, order number 94-26. I would move for approval.
Thank you. Second?
I would second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion or debate? Questions? All right, let's do a roll call, please.
Budget Member Sevick,
Yes?
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Spiracino,
Yes.
Commissioner Dyer,
Yes.
Budget Member Barton,
Yes.
Chair Morris.
Yes. Okay, the next step then is to approve the budget. And I'll look for a motion from someone.
Mr. Chair, I will move approval of order number 95-26 in the matter of approving the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget for Jackson County, Oregon, as recommended by the county administrator.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Randy. Moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion or debate at this point? We don't. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Dyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Spiracino,
Yes.
Budget Member Sevick,
Yes.
Budget Member Barton,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Chair Morris.
Yes. All right. I think we have done our duty. So before we go to lunch, I want to make special thanks to Shannon Bell and her staff for stewarding the whole budget process. As I mentioned, this has been going on since November. Thank you for that, Danny. Thank you for your leadership and bringing this all together and making sure that we stay on the right path and understand what we're doing, and I appreciate that. So thank you to everyone who's involved in the budget process, department heads, Joel, thank you. Okay.
Yes, please. Can I add that we would like to thank, too, of course, our lay members of the Budget Committee. This is something you volunteer your time for. It's extremely valuable and vital to the county, and we appreciate not just you being here, but the serious attention and experience you bring to the process And I think, again, it's a benefit to the entire county, and I want to express my gratitude for it.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, anything else, anybody? Okay, so we're adjourned and going to lunch.
You run a good meeting.